Greetings all. Thanks for inviting me to the launch of this very important report. I'm sorry I am unable to be with you in person or indeed at the time of the launch. I hope this brief recorded message helps with your discussions. Before I get into the peer review, let me first start with laying out some of the perspectives that I brought to this review process. In some academic circles, this is referred to as my positionality. Currently, I work at the World Bank in the Independent Evaluation Group, where I'm co-leading the evaluation of the World Bank's health and social response to Covid-19. The emerging results of this work were in my mind as I reviewed your work. Also in my mind is that South Africa is a home for me. It's a place where I lived, worked and started a family. In South Africa, I had the pleasure of attending the University of Cape Town, lecturing at the Wits School of Governance and developing my evaluation practice with the kind help of colleagues, especially those in the team at DPME. Other evaluation professionals and also community organisations, such as those in Mototema and Monsterlus in Sekhukhune, Limpopo, and also those in Hluhluwe, Josine and Ndumo in Umkhanyakude, KwaZulu-Natal. These experiences and connections informed my reading and review of the report. Turning now to the review, it was my pleasure to provide a peer review of the South Africa COVID-19 Country Report First Edition. My review focused on providing suggestions for enhancing the use of the current report and lessons for future iterations. The report contains an impressive contribution by providing evidence and assessment of South Africa's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The report is among the first I know to detail a wide-ranging, multi-sectoral COVID-19 response at the country level. Furthermore, the well-written, sector-specific and extensive details contained in the report will provide academics, evaluators, government officials, parliamentarians and the executive with a rich source of information and comparison as other reports are produced. The report's validity is enhanced with the authorship that includes some of the foremost experts in South Africa, both from academia, drawing upon government, and within the activist community in South Africa. Releasing this report in the form of an edited volume will likely make an important global contribution. The report outlines three purposes, namely to provide a storyline of the measures and interventions adopted by government and its social partners to manage the pandemic and its many negative effects, an almost real-time assessment of the government's response, and a reference point and lessons for handling significant disasters in future. The report most comprehensively fulfills the storyline purpose by telling the reader what happened in the pandemic response in South Africa, while the assessment of so what and lessons, now what, come across in chapters with important insights and complementary evidence, often buried within the text. In reviewing the full report, themes start to emerge within and across sectors, which are very valuable but hidden. The main suggestion of the peer review is that moving beyond the summary presented at the start of the synthesis of this report should be developed that focuses providing action-orientated and lessons and 2 to 3 recommendations for adapting the current COVID-19 response and building future epidemic and pandemic preparedness. Consistent interrelated issues arise in the report where evidence, if brought together, will provide rich lessons on extending good work and overcoming challenges. Moving beyond the current summary, a synthesis would relate knowledge, combining a set of parts into a whole that establishes new, relevant insights at a level that decision makers can work through. The individual chapters would be cited as modules. A synthesis could be developed quite quickly as the chapters in the report are substantive. Methodologies to draw together chapters could include meta-ethnography and realist synthesis. The synthesis could aim to be no longer than 30 pages and almost exclusively provide tangible lessons for different actors in South African society. I'll provide 4 examples of topics that consistently arose in my reading of the report that illustrate the rich evidence and valuable insights that could be further brought together through a synthesis process. First, the report discusses in different chapters the benefits and costs of a security-driven COVID-19 response. Various chapters identified that the response was overly centralised and focused in the security cluster, and this hindered the response by over time raising levels of resistance. Though other chapters acknowledges the advantages of the structure, at least initially when there's limited information about the nature of COVID-19 and its spread. Synthesized insights would help to inform the makeup of structures that could help undertake crisis response in South Africa in future. Second, the report identified missed opportunities in community mobilisation and inclusion. Where community-focused responses occurred, these were often evidenced as effective as they brought together multiple role players in a coordinated manner that allowed high-level policy intent to be contextualised and delivered within different contexts in South Africa. Where community mobilisation did not occur, this undermined mutual trust and hindered the response, as outlined in the report. Third, a synthesis would allow for more holistic discussion of the gendered impact of the response and the following outcomes. Numerous chapters highlight gaps in services and outcomes between men and women that go beyond the discussions focused in the chapter, bringing out further how COVID-19 has entrenched gender inequality will tell a further story so that women are not left behind in rebuilding efforts. Fourth and finally, adaptation of the crisis response at the subnational level is referenced in different chapters. The face of the epidemic, according to the data presented in the response and also in the chapters, was very different in densely populated urban areas in Durban, Cape Town and Gauteng, against the more dispersed populations in Limpopo, Northern Cape and Free State and Mpumalanga. This led to different outcomes for the different interventions depending upon the contextual circumstances. The variety of the responses in provinces helps provide indications for how different types of disease responses are needed in the different situations in South Africa. Moving now to suggestions for future reports. I understand that a second phase report is currently under development. This provides an opportunity to help zoom into areas not fully discussed in the current document. 3 suggestions are made here for consideration. First, a future report could place more emphasis on where and how vulnerability has been exacerbated and opportunities could be captured. In the current report, coverage of vulnerability occurs in different chapters, but is patchy in certain areas. So I found in reading the report that topics such as disputes between academics and ministers were well covered, but there's less specific lessons on important issues for vulnerable groups. For example, early childhood development was only dealt with in a very limited way in the current report. Second, the next phase report can provide answers more focused on so what and now what. This would allow chapters to identify actionable opportunities, drawing together lessons. This could also help to avoid making recommendations at a very high level that are about the long-term societal issues that South Africa's been grappling with for coming over 30 years now. This would also help avoid making recommendations at a very high level about long-term societal issues that are beyond the scope of COVID-19. Historical inequities and inequalities are important for the context of the response. So the main utility of these reports is providing lessons and recommendations related to COVID-19 and future crisis responses that as we see are multiplying both on the food and fragility fronts globally. Third, as with the first report, an effort can be made to synthesize findings from across chapters, moving beyond summarizing their content. As the second report is now at an early stage, it is possible to introduce a conceptual framework of the different dimensions of the response. This would help authors to be clear about where their evidence is making a contribution to the whole and together help provide new insights not detectable in single chapters alone. The DPME has recently released excellent guidance on undertaking synthesis, as has the International Initiative on Impact Evaluation. In the Independent Evaluation Group of the World Bank, we've been refining our synthesis techniques in large evaluations and through shorter notes, drawing on text analytics processes and data science. An example of this work can be found on the Better Evaluation website and the Independent Evaluation Group website as well. That could be helpful with your own efforts. Thank you again for the opportunity to review the report, and congratulations for putting a product valuable to South Africa that has global relevance for understanding the successes and challenges of undertaking responses to the COVID-19 pandemic.